thank you all for being here. It's so nice to have this audience, so many well-known faces, friends from Chile, from Angola, from Germany, from Portugal, from, well, many places. Thank you. And also, as I said before, this will be recorded. So in case you need to leave, you can access this recording later. And also feel free to reach me out later. So we don't need to have our contact restricted to this webinar. Later on, if you want to reach out and to talk about challenges of angel investing, your practices, the idea of this Business Angel Talks is that we just start conversations, okay? The conversation doesn't end here. So I encourage you all to make contact with me or other colleagues in Core Angels to continue this fruitful discussions, okay? So I will share my screen in a moment. And I'll put this. Okay. Okay, can you see the screen already?
No, let's.
Not yet.
Now it's here, Cynthia.
Yeah,
Okay,
no, it's okay.
Thank you. Okay, cool. So it's okay? Can you see it still? Okay, nice.
Yes.
Perfect.
So before I jump into the topic of this talk today, I just wanted to remind you all that you have ways of knowing a little bit of what's going on in Core Angels. So if you want to get posted about us and what we're doing, you can follow us on our LinkedIn page. Okay, there you can find blog posts, articles, news about Core Angels. You can also go to our event page in our website. There you can find events just like this one. Some of our events are restricted to our community of founders and business angels, but other events, they are open to the general public, and then you can go there and register. And you can also subscribe to our newsletter. If you go to the bottom of our website, you can fill in a form and you will get information, calls, interviews, content and news about angel investing and about Core Angels once per month, okay? So this are just reminders and announcements that I need to make before jumping into our topic, okay? So, but the question today is, can angel involvement contribute to the success of a startup? And the reason why I started looking for information about it, looking for evidences about it, is very simple. When I started investing in startups, I used to hear this kind of sentence, you know, like, well, angels, they contribute to the journey of startups, to their success. This is the smart money, so it's money that comes with something else. It's not just money, it's much more than that. And I used to hear that, and well, you know, it was good to hear this, you know. I think that as an angel, you feel like, well, I'm special, I can somehow contribute to these people. My money is not the same money of anyone else. It brings a stamp or a background or a network or something that I built during my career. So it feels good. We feel like flattered. And I think that every time we listen to such a sentence that makes us feel good, that makes us feel, you know, special, I think it's time to, you know, take a little breath and take a step back and think, well, is it really true? Or is it me? I just want to believe in this. I just want to believe that I can contribute, that angel money is special, and that we can make a difference to startups, okay? So I started reading some materials about this, some researches on this. And the thing is that this is a tricky thing to measure, okay? And basically because of two factors. The first one is because angel investing is not something that is so easy to track. We have many investors acting as solo angels, so they do their investment in their way, and there is no needed record for this. And another factor also is that we have some biases when angels, or in general investors, they report their investments. Okay, there is some kind of bias of selecting the best cases, of remembering more the success than the failures, or not recording some important failures or some important mistakes they made. So it's really tricky to measure this kind of thing. But researchers, they try to do their best, and we could find some interesting studies on this matter, and that's what I'll bring to you in a second. So first, let's just talk about money, okay? So money, the angel money, does it make any sort of impact in the startup industry? So there was a research from these two gentlemen here. They are from Harvard, if I'm not wrong. And they conducted a research in US, and they found out that a startup funded by an angel group, this was focused on angel groups, had 25% more chances of surviving after 4 years, 11% more chances of an exit, and 19% more chances of reaching 75 employees, okay? And they did similar studies to other 11 countries where they could find very similar numbers for survival rates, exits, and hiring, okay? But now let's talk about returns, okay? And how do we measure angel returns? What is the average return of an angel when they invest in a startup? And here I collect three main research that were conducted in different places, and of course with different sizes of samples, but with kind of similar conclusions, kind of similar numbers. And what are they? So first, in 2007, there was a study conducted with US angel funds. They were measuring more than 200 startups, and they could find that these are the numbers of the returns for the angels. So a 2.6 multiple on average, this is all average numbers, and a 27% of IRR, okay? Still a very concentrated, so half of the investments were a failure. The returns were lower than one time, okay? So they didn't recover the money they invested. And 10% of the exits corresponded to 90% of the returns of the gains they got. So very concentrated. Then in 2009, there was another study, another research, very interesting, because it was not only about returns, but they could get more information. They did it with 158 angels. They were acting on groups, and they were based in UK. These angels, they invested in more than 1,000 startups, and 400 have exits. Being exits, it could be a public offering, it could be an exit, it could be a shutdown, a walk away. These are exits, okay? And they found these numbers, okay? So still very concentrated, 10% of exits corresponding to 80% of the gains. Average number of failures, mostly the same as the previous one. IRR multiple, and the whole time in line with the study of 2007, okay? So different locations, very similar time, and similar indicators. And then they did an update on the 2007 study. There was an update, there was a second research that was called Tracking Angel Returns. They were studying 500 US angels, investing in more than 3,000 startups and more than 1,000 exits. And these are the numbers they could find. So average concentration of 85% of the gains coming from the 10% of exits, still higher rate of failure. So 70% of the investments were failures, and the 2.5 multiple is there in line with the other studies, okay? So this is basically the most well-known research related to the returns of the angels. But then we're going to do a zoom in this sighting with angels, that is the research from 2009, because this is a very interesting research, because it could measure not only the investment, the number, the exits, the multiples, the returns, but also what kind of involvement the angels had with the startups. And so it brings some interesting conclusions to our topic today. So the return distribution in this research shows that roughly half of the investments were a failure. Okay? A third of the investments had returns from 1 to 5 times as a multiple. And 90% of the exits were above 5 times. So this is really a game of a very high rate of failure. And this is why it's extremely recommended that we can diversify investments in startups. And this is why it makes sense to invest in portfolios to try to dilute this kind of risk. If you're just investing in 1 startup, in 2 startups, in 3 startups, the chances of failure are really, really high. So these are the average numbers. In general, in average, these angels, they were investing in 8% of the shares of the startups. And 9% of the exits were corresponding to 80% of the gains, of the returns, okay? And these timings are very interesting. So in average, the timing for an exit was of 3.6 years. But when it's a total loss, the timing is of 3 years, okay? So, and for positive exits, the timing is of 6 years. So for sure, it's a game where failure comes before success. So this is why it's very dangerous, and we really need to be careful with exits, with being in a rush to promote exits, or stressing our founders, our investor startups with this, because it takes time. And sometimes if you wait 1 more year, 2 more years, you can have much better results than if you anticipated. Okay, but what are key factors that could explain that some exits, they have higher multiples than others? And this study shows that one of the factors is the angel's expertise in the startup industry. So it really makes a difference if the angel is aware of the market, of the industry the startup is serving. It really makes a difference if this person is comfortable to challenge the startup in that market. Another factor was the experience with entrepreneurship. So if this is a person, if the angel is a person that has been an entrepreneur or that has been relating to entrepreneurs for a while and knows how this game is played, it's really different, the way that the angel can contribute. So it makes a difference. Another factor was at least 20 hours of due diligence. And this is not, so 20 hours, why? Because they saw that for the due diligence that took more time than that, you were not adding so much value on this. And this is interesting because the due diligence serves not only to identify red flags, not only to say it's a go or not go investment, but it helps you know a little bit more of the startups you invest in. So when you're doing a good due diligence, you can get information not only from the finance side, but also about the contracts this startup has been signing with their clients, about the business model, some more details about it. So it makes much easier for the angel to really contribute and engage with the founders after the investment is done. One interesting thing is that when you have co-investments, when you have like 2 groups investing in the same startup, due diligence is something that can be shared. So you don't need to spend the whole 20 hours from your side. You can share this with another investment partner. And angel's involvement after the investment. This is a key factor for higher multiples. And we're going to zoom in a little bit in the next slides. But I would like also to mention the last one, that is less or no follow-ons. And this is something that when I read, I thought, well, really? So I would expect that companies that are getting more follow-ons, they would be more successful because they are receiving more credit by the angels. They are receiving more, there are more people that are believing in their success. But the tricky thing is that many of the follow-ons are approved by angels because they are trying to avoid the failure of that startup. They are trying to avoid the money loss. So they are not deciding as if it were the first time seeing that startup. So it's interesting to see that when angels are evaluating for the first time that startup, they don't have any background with them. They don't have a relationship with them. They have not yet invested in them. So the first time they are much more rigorous. They are much more, they will dig in and get the most information. And then when there is a follow-on, if there is some signs of, well, they're doing good, angels tend to invest. Or worse than that, if there are some signs that, well, these guys are going to lose all the money that I put in here, so they will try to put more money to avoid the failure. So this is an interesting point in this research. So let's zoom in this involvement after investment. Okay. What this research shows is that they measured the involvement of angels with the startup after the investment is done. And they divided this in two levels of involvement. They considered an active involvement. It means that the angel or the angel fund, they are a board member, they have a seat on the board, or they have weekly or monthly interaction with the founders. Or it can be a passive involvement. A passive involvement means that they don't have a board seat and they interact in a quarterly basis, yearly, or less than that, okay? So they divided the type of investment into these two levels. And they also measured the ways of involvement. So what do angels do to participate in these startups after the investment? And basically, they can be board members, they can act as a coach for the founders, they can introduce the startup to potential clients or partners, and sometimes they have some level of operational involvement. So working with the specific challenge of that startup, defining, helping the founders to get some important answers to the business model, to the strategy of the go-to-market strategy, etc. So some specific and time-framed operational involvement. Okay. They found what they found about this. So this is the returns distribution when you split it into passive involvement and active involvement. And here you can see that if you're talking about multiples higher than 5 times, it's active involvement that is in there. So if you, sorry, just a second. When you take a look at the more than 30 times, it's only active involvement that is in there. When you're talking about higher than 10 times, it's basically active involvement that is there. And if you examine the curve, the distribution of the passive involvement, the risk of failure is really high. So this is an interesting finding of this research. But then these are figures that come from a research from a specific location, from a specific sample. And so I'm bringing now a case study. So let's examine this kind of mapping, this kind of categorization of involvement from the angels using an angel fund portfolio, and let's see how it looks like. So this case study is a portfolio of 27 startups, early stage. They have been invested since 2015, a variety of industries and founder profiles, B2B and B2C startups, and an average time of investment of almost 5 years. Okay, and same thing. So we did very similar to the Signing with Angels study. Okay, so we did the distribution of potential returns. The curve is around this one, and it's really somehow in line with what was found in Signing with Angels, a little better in the 10 and 30x. But still, half of the investments are failure, almost a third, around a fourth of the investments from 1 to 5 times. And it's a very common distribution of return, okay? And then we categorized them also into passive and active involvement. And we could see that in the case of this portfolio, there was no, all the passive startups, they got multiples up to 5 times. This was the best performance that they could reach, okay? So if we're talking about multiples higher than 5 times, in the case of this portfolio, we just could find startups that had involvement from the angels. And this involvement varies in many aspects, okay? In frequency, in subject, and in the relationship built with the founders. We'll examine this a little later. So it's really concentrated. I brought here the chart from the study, from the Signing with Angels. And this portfolio is doing better in the higher multiples, okay, when compared to the research. But it's the same conclusions. It's even more the conclusions of participation, of active involvement of the angels are even higher in this case study. But how the angels participate? And it's really different. If you are investing in a startup that is in a phase of building the MVP, of validating their solution, or if it's in a second phase of operations and getting traction, or if in this third phase of scaling up and promoting growth. Angels, they do have different participations, different kinds of involvement, okay? The things they will be acting will be different. So we could get, in this case study, we could map the specific things that each startup was helped by an angel. And it's interesting because some startups, they can be helped by different angels in each phase of the investment or in each phase of the life of the startup. It needs a different kind of contribution. So if you are solo angel, your kind of contribution is limited by your own capacity. If we're talking about a group of angels investing together, the capacity of contribution to a startup, it's much higher, it's much bigger, and it's much more diverse. The trick thing here is how to promote it, how to really guarantee that startups will be supported by that team of angels. If we have such a rich profile of people investing in these startups, we need to guarantee that they have access to these angels and that they can benefit from the experience, the background, and the time of them. So basically, when they are in this first stage of MVP and validation, angels can help in networking, for promoting proofs of concepts, validation, market research, this sort of thing, opening doors for some research, from some validation. Also, market knowledge can really help founders, can really give some shortcuts to them. If you are investing in a startup and you are very familiar with the process they are trying to improve, or with a market that you have worked for many years, and you know the breaches, you know where technology can add value, or what is more valued by the industry, you really can help founders to get those shortcuts and don't spend a lot of time and energy and trying to identify these top features or the best sales approach. And go-to-market strategies for the same reason. One thing that we need to have in mind is that early stage investments are really hard for founders, for us as well, for angels, because usually founders are great in technical stuff and not so great in sales stuff. And not only they are not so great, but they are not aware of that. So this is another challenge, okay? And they really believe, they genuinely believe that their solution is great and it will sell by itself, that they need very little effort, just communicate to the world that you're doing that and they are going to sell. And it's not this way. It's much harder than this. And it's our role as angels to make sure that they understand that, and then we can have some insights, bring some insights to the table and help them on this. In the second phase of operations and traction, then comes like bigger problems, like grown-up problems and leadership, crisis management, when things start coming and operations start running and they get a little more traction and they are making things happen and they are growing, they are hiring people, they will face problems with the team, they will face problems of conflicts and management disputes, conflicts in the C-level, difficulties because they are not CEOs of big companies. They are learning how to be CEO, CMO, CTOs, C whatever. So this is the part where angels can contribute a lot with seniority, with leadership, with mediating conflicts, and this kind of thing. Also, one thing that angels, that founders love to ask, and they are right of asking this, is introduction to potential clients and partners. This is not that easy. I was talking to an angel 2 weeks ago, and she was telling me, yes, I want to help them on this, on introducing clients. I have some people from my background, from my past network that I could introduce, but I don't feel comfortable in doing this. I don't know how to make it in a good way for the startups and for myself as well, because I don't want to get too exposed. And we were discussing how to tackle this. And also some things more related to technical expertise, and especially, as I said before, sales, marketing, customer relationship, and technology sometimes, because they are growing, okay? So it's really different when you are starting something in the technological aspect, and then when it starts becoming bigger. So they might need help on this. And in the scale up and in the growth phase, then they already know how to do that, okay? So they have already figured out the business. They already figured out, they're working on things like improving key metrics, like reducing the CAC, increasing the LTV, make the sales cycle shorter, or reducing the setup times. So they are already running it by themselves. They don't need help with basic stuff. So they need help with planning and execution of next rounds, introducing potential investors for the next round, and screening some opportunities in M&A, exits, etc. So basically, these were the things that came from this study in the portfolio. Okay, but the way I'm telling you, it looks like very easy, right? Like, well, I have invested in a startup, or I'm part of a fund who has invested in a startup. I'll just call the founders, or I'll send a message and say, hello, I'm available, I can help you, I think. And it's not that easy, because we're talking about human beings, right? So we are talking about a founder in one side, an angel in another side, and all the relationship issues that can come from this. And there is a very interesting study, a very interesting author that she did this study about the role of the investee company managers in the angels involvement. So how there are some factors that can really contribute to leverage this relationship and make this the most for both, or can really reduce the chances of success of this relationship. Okay, and this author, she identified some aspects, and I'm bringing also here some aspects that were detected in the case study. Okay, So first is aligning expectations. And this is crucial. This is crucial because one thing that an angel must understand is that although we believe in the business, although we are trying to support the founders, this is not our business. Literally, we are just investing in the business of someone else. So we can influence, we can bring information, we can challenge them, we can bring questions, anything. But we don't decide and we don't control. So it's pretty usual that as an angel, I can bring suggestions to a founder. I can bring articles, food for thought, etc. And the founder can listen to everything that I say and can tell me, yes, I see your point, but you know what? I'm going in the opposite way because I understand your point of view, but my point of view is different, and this is my business, and I'm going to run it the way I think it is to be run. So, and sometimes when it happens, angels get a lot of frustration, and it shouldn't be like that. This is part of the game. Okay, we are here to support, to contribute, to influence, but we are not the founders of the business. We are not running the business. Second thing is the lack or excess of interaction. I like to say that it's important that founders start these interactions. It's important that we as angels, we are there for them. We are available to give it, to provide information, to give feedback, to help them. But this action must start from the founders. Otherwise, we are going to be just controllers, or we are just there, just requesting information. We are not adding value to the business. We will be one more work they have to do. Oh my God, I have to keep up that angel informed. Oh my God, she calls me every time. If I'm going to communicate to everybody what I'm doing, I'll do nothing rather than that. And I have to take care of the business. I have a business to grow. Okay. So the excess of interaction is also bad, but the lack of interaction is also bad. And so, but I truly believe that it needs to be initiated by the founders. Okay. And for that, we need to make it clear to the founders that we believe in angel investing in this way. Because one day a founder was talking to me about a specific problem they are going through. And I remembered of another angel. I could not help that founder. And I remember of another angel in the same group. And I said, why don't you call him? I think he would be a nice person for you to talk to about this. He has a lot of experience on this. And he said, oh, really? But he's such a busy guy. I don't want to interrupt anything, or I don't want to bother him. And then I said, okay, you just send a message and say that you need help with this and this theme, and then you set up a call or check if he has any availability. And he was still uncomfortable with that. And then I said, look, this is angel investing. This guy, it's not the only investment he has. He might have several other types of investing. But if he's investing in your startup, it's because he truly wants to contribute to that. It's his, he's aligned with you on this. He's in the same side of you at this table. He wants to make it grow. So if he cannot attend you, if he's not available, he'll tell you. But it's his interest. It's his interest to contribute to you. So sometimes it's a problem of mindset of the founders, and this is education that we need to bring to the table with founders and with angels as well. Another thing is coachable founder plus impactful angel. Coachable founder means a founder that is open to contributions. Okay, that doesn't have all the answers. That it's not a problem for this founder. It's not too attached to that solution or that technology that he has developed. So usually when we are evaluating a startup, this is a key aspect from the team. How much they are coachable, how much they are willing to listen to different points of view. Okay. And again, listening to some points of view doesn't mean agreeing with that, doesn't mean doing what the angel suggests, but listening and evaluating it seriously. And some founders, they're not like that. And this is one of the challenges that we face in this relationship. The other thing is an impactful angel. And it's really important for us angels to recognize when we cannot contribute to that startup. So if you're going to be a WhatsApp angel is the person that calls or sends a message and say, hello, what's up? How's business? How you doing? Anything? You know, this does not add value to the startup. Okay, founders won't like to talk to someone like that. You know, founders want people that will help them think of the business. So don't be a WhatsApp angel. Okay, try to be an impactful angel. And what can happen is that you can be an impactful angel for some time, and there comes a time that, well, you know, I cannot contribute to you in this specific phase. Maybe I should call somebody else, or maybe I could just suggest you to have a board with people that could help you more than I can. Define clear situations for support, and this is being time-specific, selecting specific issues to be treated. Otherwise, you're going to be generic conversation, just like I said before. And build a trust-based relationship. And this part is really key, because it's a long-term relationship. You're not investing in a startup to get rid of this in the following year. It's important that the founder feels okay to share with you what's not working. And the founder is okay to share with you some crazy idea he had last morning. But this takes time, you know. It's not because you just decided to help that person that the relationship is at. You know, this takes time, and it's demand energy, patience, you know, listening, asking, and building this since the beginning. And it's really important because once they grow up, they will find other friends. They will be invested by other higher checks. They will get higher amounts of money, and they have new friends. And if you have this trust-based relationship, even if you're not a board member of that startup, even if you're not the higher check on the table, they will still come to you to ask for some advice, or they can still trust you for helping them in some important matters. Okay, and then I just brought some testimonials from the founders, because I'm just saying, and I'm not a founder of the invested companies I'm talking about. So these are just two testimonials from founders of startups invested by core angels. Marcelo, the CEO from SizeBay, highlighting the simple, straightforward, and proactive relationship with investors, and Eduardo from QR Point, saying that the mentorship and advisory of angels could help them align strategy, improve decision-making, and focus on the key metrics of the business.